Hello, you're very welcome to today's video. This is a continuation of the I am, I lack videos, and today we're going to explore I lack courage and how you can embrace fear. Or even if embracing fear is a little too much, perhaps be with fear might be more accurate. So before I go into what do I mean by I lack courage, using an example of how courage and fear or embracing fear work together. My name's Anand and I'm an emotional wellness and embodiment coach, and I help those who are weighed down with inner struggles so that they can uncover their inner richness. And courage is definitely one of the inner riches that we have. And if you're interested in learning about what I talk about, the 7 elements of inner richness, there's a link to the playlist that you can watch that, and you can specifically look at the video on courage. So what do I mean by courage? I lack courage. There are many of us that believe that we don't have courage, or the kind of courage we display or exhibit is not seen as courage. It's more of minimised or discounted. Yeah, often the kind of quiet courage can be minimised or reframed as, or not reframed, but resaid as something like, oh, well, that's just what I do. Or, well, sure, everyone does that. It means nothing. It's, so what? I learned to do a thing. Big deal. But what did it take for that person to learn that thing? And this is where this video will look at how can you reframe I lack courage, meaning, yeah, I'm never brave in anything. I just whatever through life, to actually what little small acts of courage do you display throughout the day that you don't see? This video is going to explore this reframing, because often in coaching's often about reframing how we see ourselves. We have a story that we say, I am this or I am that, or I lack this or I lack that. And that's why I'm doing this series, so that people who say these stories about themselves can see it, hear the story and go, ooh. And to challenge that story, to find out, is that story actually true? And to challenge it, because coaching can be a little bit about, do I challenge this? You may be noticing in the video I have a skylight above me and there's this weird purpley light coming down. I could edit this out, but I'm not going to. I actually kind of like the weird effect, so just a little side note. And even that may be a very tiny act of courage there. The courage to be authentic, the courage to go, yeah, I'm not going to make this video perfect and edited and all of the things that one is meant to do. I want to allow the spontaneity of this cool, weird purple light come in. So, looking at what is courage. Courage is in the heart facing something even if you feel fear. And there's a video where I talk a lot more about courage that you can explore, but it's from the heart, and it's daring to do something in spite of fear. Courage is not the absence of fear, it's doing it anyway, even when you're afraid. In actual fact, when you're very afraid. So an example of courage might be, and where you might minimize it, you go to an exam. Well, everyone went to the exam, so what? But if you had intense anxiety where you felt like your breath was so tight in your chest and your heart was ready to beat out of it, and your mind went blank and you were constantly saying, I'm going to fail, I'm going to mess up, I'm going to whatever. And yet you sat down at the desk and you did the test anyway. That is an act of courage. And that's what this video is about. It's to encourage you to reframe how you see courage. And to note the daily acts of courage that you do. The other element I'm talking about is embracing fear. And in a much earlier video, I talked about the various emotions, and one of them is fear. And fear can really keep us caged in. It keeps us safe, it protects us, but it also keeps us caged in. So if you're saying, I lack courage, you also want to look at, well, how does fear play in my life? What does fear hold me back in? So you might look at, well, this fear I have is very practical. It's keeping me safe, like not crossing a very busy road when there's a car about to come. But equally, you might have a fear of driving. I've talked about this before, fear of driving. And you think, okay, I have a fear of driving, I don't need to drive a car. But when it starts to impact you economically, or being the ability to get from A to B, or impact some other aspect of your life where you really begin to narrow down your life, then fear is getting in the way. Or maybe you have a fear of public speaking. That's a really big fear. Oh God, if I talk to people in public, I think I'll die. But perhaps you have a job where you have to give a presentation and you rely on that fear. You rely on, you have to give presentations. So every time it feels like a death for you almost, that you go and you talk. And then you might berate yourself for going, oh, there I am, I'm a coward, I can't even do a proper presentation. I go in a heap every time. Well, I would challenge that and say, and reframe that, so that you can see, well, actually, I was courageous because I went out there in spite of the fear. I used XYZ tool to support myself to do this presentation, even though it feels like a death. And with this I lack courage, when you start to reframe it and see where you are courageous, that gives you enough of a sense of your courage, and that encourages you to take another step. I'm going to use my own example. Each time I do a video, it's difficult for me. I often have to do multiple retakes before I actually get into a flow and do the actual video. And I go through this inner narrative, oh God, the hair, the this, the that, the voice, the whatever. And it can get in the way. And I'm laughing because I did about 4 takes before this video. And then it's like, will the video get received? Will anyone be interested? And yet I still do it. And that is an act of courage. I do it despite it being difficult and uncomfortable. It is getting easier the more I do it. But sometimes I really don't want to do videos. I would much rather hide. I have a fear of being seen. And yet here I am on a video talking to you about courage and making myself more visible. It took a long time for me to be comfortable, or not even comfortable, but be willing to do this, to be seen. It's an ongoing thing, and that's the thing about courage. It's always ongoing. So you might say today, I lack courage in 20 or 30 different things. And if you want, actually a good takeaway for you for this video is list down all the things that you believe you lack courage, and then list Where have you displayed or done the thing despite the fear? Make a note. Commit to this. I'm going to write down 10 things that I believe I lack courage, and look at those and see what have I done to actually counter them. And no matter how small, and then note that and see for yourself, is it true you lack courage? Or do you minimize the things that you're afraid of doing, but do them anyway? Because if you do that, you don't lack courage. So thank you, and I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye.